This is the solution for the other practice problem proposed at the end of the strings and printf tutorial in this same playlist. And for this one, we're going to do a formatted receipt. So the goal is to have a receipt that looks like this. And we're going to edit the receipt program from types, variables, and expressions in order to get this program. So I'm going to right click and copy and then paste here. And I'm going to call it formatted receipt. Double click here to get the left pane to go away. Move this over. Okay, so we want our receipt to look like this instead of the way it looks now. So the first thing to do is create a string for the name. So string name equals Megan. And put in that first line. So this one I'm going to do with a regular println because it doesn't have to have special formatting. So I'm going to do system.out.println Mr., Mrs., plus, and then name, and then plus the rest of the line. Your totals are. And now these next lines are where the printfs come into play. So I'm going to go ahead and do the printfs without any of the spacing taken into consideration. So the first one is going to be just subtotal, and then subtotal. So this becomes printf, and then this first one is where all the format is going to take place. So first I have a string followed by a decimal. Sorry. Followed by a float. So now I want to do the subtotal with tax. So again, this becomes subtotal with tax. And then this first parameter to printf becomes the %s, %f. And this is going to be the total. Forgot a space there. And that becomes a comma again. And now we have that first parameter to printf, which will be another %s, %f. And you'll notice on the receipt that we're aiming for, it has a tip. So what we're going to do is create another double called tip amount that's going to be equal to this calculation that was done here. And we're just going to replace that calculation with the tip amount variable. So now we can get the %s, %f, tip, and then tip amount. Okay, so we're going to run this. So run, and then run. Formatted receipt. And the first thing we notice is that all of these lines that were supposed to be our nice receipt are strung together. And that's because printf doesn't introduce new line characters for us in the same way that plain print doesn't. So I want to first add in new line characters. And after the tip, what am I doing? Not %, backslash. And after the tip, I want 2 new lines, so I have this nice space between tip and total. So I'm going to rerun. And now we see that we have everything on its own line. But I really wanted another space between this line and this line. So I'm going to add another one here. Rerun it. Okay, so the first thing we want to focus on is getting these numbers to have the correct number of decimal places. So to do that, I'm just going to put a 0.2 before the F to say only 2 decimal places. So I'm going to rerun. And now these all look like dollar amounts. And we'll notice now that when we were doing it just flat out, we forgot to put dollar signs. So I'm going to go ahead and add those back in. Dollar, 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 dollar. Okay, so now all of our money amounts have dollar signs, but we still have one issue. The first is that our money amounts aren't all the way right aligned. The second is that the wording isn't left aligned nicely so things line up in columns like they do in our example output. So, in order to fix that, we're going to count how many characters are in this string so we know how wide the word column needs to be. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So I'm going to say 20 just to be safe. So I'm going to put a 20 before the S everywhere to say I want it 20 wide. Now remember, the default for width is to have it right justified, but we want it to be on the left. So we need to put in minus in front of all of these 20s. So now this will align it to the left. Okay, so now all of our words are aligned on the left properly, but our dollars here on the right are still misaligned. So let's assume that everything is capped at 100, at the hundreds place. So no total will ever be over $1,000. So that means that this right here will never be wider than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I can make this 7.2 because the 7, actually make it 6 because I don't need to count my dollar sign. So that will make this number 6 wide, including the decimal and things after the decimal. And it will right align them because that's the default for a width. So I can play. And now my receipt is properly formatted exactly like I wanted, except one minor problem, right? The dollar sign here didn't get formatted properly because it just moved it over. So in order to fix that, what are we going to do? I actually hadn't considered this before I started programming. Let's see. We could do a string dot format, which we haven't talked about yet, in order to get the dollar sign over, or we could decide that it's not a big enough deal and the dollar sign being aligned the way they are is perfectly okay with us. And I think for now, so that we don't get in the weeds, we can just decide that this kind of output is okay. It gets the point across and we know exactly what our totals are supposed to look like. So that's it. That is how we can use string formatting to do something that's actually kind of useful. I hope that was helpful.